Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Mallow, the paranormal yakker. My guest on today's show is experiencer and alien abductee Lisa Savoy. I'll be talking with Lisa about her book, Living in Two Worlds, a true account of alien encounters. Lisa Savoy, welcome to Paranormal Yakker.
Hello, and thank you for having me on your show.
You, Lisa, have encountered Greys, Reptilians, Men in Black, and the Nordic. I'll be talking with you about all of them in this interview. What I would like to know now is which alien being you encountered first, when did it occur, how old were you when it happened, and what were the circumstances surrounding it?
I was at the age of 3.5 years old. The first my encounter I remember was having the Greys. It was one night I woke up and the room felt cooler than usual. It was during the summer and the room was getting darker. And those back wall across from me was getting darker, like pitch black. And that's when I seen these beings coming right through my wall. They were 3.5 feet tall. They have pale gray skin, light gray skin. They have very large black eyes. They were very penetrating, just looked right through you. They had no ears. They had no hair. They had like small two holes for a nose and a slit for a mouth. They were thin. I got up and I approached one of them and I spoke to him. I was not afraid of him, no fear. But when I spoke to him, like I had told my name, no response. I asked him how they got into my room, how they got through the wall. Again, no response. I even offered a friendly handshake to him. He just looked down at my hand, looked back up at me. And again, no response. And at that time, the atmosphere changed. Something didn't feel right. And he looked at me from head to toe. And then, like there was eight of them all together. Half of them stepped way over to my right side. The other half stepped over right over to the left side. And I was standing there in the middle. And then I could feel this energy going around me and right through me. And at the same time, I was being lifted up off the floor. I was terrified. I couldn't move. I couldn't even move my eyes. And I tried to fight it. And when I did fight it, I had this horrible pain going through my body. And I just went right through this black area where my wall should have been. I just floated right through it. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. I cried. Since I couldn't scream, I screamed in my mind, "Mommy," in my mind. And after that, that's all I can remember.
You've had two recurring dreams in your life. Each affected you in a different way. One dream you found fascinating, the other not so much. Could you tell me about those dreams, what they were about, how did they differ, and in what way did each affect you?
Well, with the Greys, I found them very unpleasant, especially on time. I started having recurring dreams, the horrible examinations they gave me. They were painful. Some of them were painful. And they did as well, so that's physical, but mental experience mentally as well, like for intelligence, mental endurance, they've done it as well. And as I got older, these experiences intensified even more. They got more painful and more stressful as time went. And then Angie, the Nordic, with her, she was very friendly, very loving. She didn't take me against my will. I went with her on my own choice. She gave me an invitation and I went with her. So with her, it was totally different. She took me in these fascinating rides on her spaceship, and later in time, she took me into her hangar. So with her, it was a totally different experience. And during my childhood, the Reptilians, I was 4.5. Reptilians, at first, I never been to Men in Black, and then they would take me, and there was aware of being underground. It was really dark. It's like a long hallway. There's several doors, and he would take me into his room, and that's when I first seen the Reptilians. Was with them, and I had an experience happen to me before. This was before I met Angie. I had that. I seen the Men in Black Reptilians like 5 times before I met Angela.
Related to Angie, I know you called her by various names, but eventually wound up calling her Angie, and she entered your bedroom by transporting herself through a brick wall. That's amazing. what happened during that encounter?
Okay, I remember the first night I woke up and I noticed I heard like someone knocking, like tapping on the window. And there was a woman outside my window. And I thought, how could this be? Like we were in a 2-story row house. Next thing I knew, she just walks right through the window and the brick wall. No problem. There's nothing there. And she came in. I was sitting up on my bed. She came in, started talking to me. She said my name. I thought, how does she know my name? I didn't feel fearful from her. I just get nothing but a very peaceful, friendly feeling from her. She talked to me more and she knew everything about me. I mean, everything, even encounter with the Greys, the Reptilians, the Men in Black. She knew everything. She told me her name. I couldn't pronounce her name. And the name started with an A. So since she knew everything, she had a totally different personality than the Greys. I just assumed that she was an angel. So at first I called her Angel. A couple nights after that, after seeing her, one night she gave me a hug. And I go, wait, she's physical. She had a heartbeat, breathing, everything. She's not an angel. I said to her, I go, you're not an angel. So I called her Angela. I called her Angie for short. I remember the night she told me she wanted to show me something. So I thought, what's she talking about? So she got up, went towards the window. I followed her. I was behind her. She stepped out. I noticed how she floated very softly down to the ground, like something carried her gently. And it was my turn to step out. I was afraid. I kind of stood there. I looked down. I thought, ooh, she told me I had no reason to be afraid. It was okay. I wasn't going to fall. So I slowly stepped out. And I can feel this force going around me, but it wasn't as aggressive. It wasn't paralyzing. It just gently floated me down. So I went down with her and she's looking to the right. And I thought, what's she looking at? I don't see anything. I went over to the right. She took me by my hand because I was kind of going ahead of her. So she took me by the hand. And as I got closer, I walked over. I thought I could see it's kind of like a blur. Like you can tell that there was something there. Like you can't really see it, but it's just like a blur. So I got closer. I can see that it was a spaceship, like a triangle-shaped ship sitting there. You got really close, you can see a reflection on the ship. And I noticed spaceship was not, it had no gear on it. It was floating above the ground, and I thought, how could that be? I looked underneath it. There's just no landing gear there. She let me go underneath it. There's a piece in the middle, shaped something like a teardrop underneath it, just a small piece. And then I got up. I walked around to the ship in front of the ship. It was very pointed, it's like a wedge-shaped triangle. I went to the front of the spaceship. It's really pointed up front. And I looked up. I can see another smaller piece of a triangle sitting on top of the ship. I could see no windows. It's just like looking into a mirror. I could see no windows at all. I thought, how does she see? She took me to the back. Then we floated up on top of this other piece of ship. And I thought, okay, how do you get into this thing? So I looked down. It's just like when you take a rock and you drop it in water. You know how the water parts into like a circle. Well, that's how it opened up top, like that. It just opened up and it was all really bright in there. I can see it's all white inside. I was the first one to go in. Then she followed behind me. I was sitting in there and I looked forward. I was like, oh, wow, here's the windows. I could see the windows. I could see the houses straight in front of us from across the street. It was all white inside. Mostly they had like one piece on the right hand side of the chair you're sitting in. There's a gray piece there. At first I didn't know what it was for. And there's a round ball in front of me. And down her side, something like I don't remember what it was, but it looked something like a screen. That's all I remember. And we're there talking. And you know how you take off an airplane, you hear the engines roaring, you feel movement. Well, you heard no engines going. You felt no movement. And next I know, we're up in the sky, and I look down. Like an airplane, you can see the ground moving underneath you, but the speed she's going is like a blur. We're going that fast. She took me multiple times in her ship, and then she started taking me above the earth. Like one night we were in a ship, and next thing I know, matter of seconds, we're above the earth, looking down at it. It was fascinating.
When did you encounter the reptilians? You spoke about it earlier, encountering them. When did that happen, and what transpired when you came in contact with them?
Oh, I've seen them during my childhood. I believe I was 4.5, just before I met Angie. I remember when they took me, the Men in Black took me in that room. It was dark. They had very little, not much lighting in there, very little lighting, like lights going, like non-narrow lights going up and down on the walls. When the Men in Black took me to the room, there was another one in there. And there was like an examination table on the left side of me. Someone picked me up and sat me on the table. And I remember there's another table, like a fold-out table just across from me on the right side. The other Men in Black, he was there. He had a briefcase. I remember he picked up this briefcase, he put it on the table, he opened it up, and he took something like a chart out of it, and he's going through it. I noticed too he had sunglasses on. It struck me strange. It's like, why is he wearing sunglasses in a dark room? He eventually, after he put the chart down, took off his sunglasses. And I noticed both of them took off their jackets they had on. And the tie, they took that off. They both come over. One goes at the end of the table, one goes at the front of the table, and they tell me I had to lie down. I didn't want to. Each end there, after I lie down, one take off my top and one take off my pants. I'd be lying there with nothing on. I noticed something like to my left. I could hear something. The wall is like really black. There's no light on that wall at all. It's just pitch black. Like when the grays come in, I heard something. I go, what is that? And I looked, I could see something approaching. It wasn't the grays. They're huge. They're wearing black cloaks. I can hear them making all this sound. There's 5 of them all together. I remember how they looked. I was terrified. I thought, what is this? I can tell once they got closer, I can see their face. They have like a face like a T-Rex. They had yellow eyes, and they had a certain smell. As a child, I couldn't figure out what the smell was. They just had the scent on them. And I had 3 go around me on one side, and the other 2 went around the other side. So I had a Men in Black each end and these reptilians around me. It's 5 altogether. And I remember they had really huge hands. They had long, really long claws on their hands. And I remember they had really white, sharp teeth. I could see their teeth. It was getting really overwhelming. I did not understand what was going on. Why was this happening to me? And one time I feel their reptilian hands touch me, and it's like a scratchy. It didn't feel painful, feeling on my lower stomach, my side. And I remember when a reptilian gets mad, just get behind my head there, the enemy. And I remember seeing this huge hand going up over my face, and I could smell something, and then I passed out. That's all I remember of that one. But that happened 5 times.
In addition to them, did any other alien beings perform experiments on you? And if they did, what were they?
The Greys did. They did numerous. At 3.5, it was more like a rough exam. They took me, like more of a rough exam. Like they would take some of my skin, my hair. They would take blood from me, blood samples. I remember they would examine in my mouth. They'd done that. But after that, it got more intense. Like the experiments got more involved. Like from 3.5 to like 5, they started getting more extreme, more painful. Like they're going into my ears, into my nose, my eyes, into my teeth.
Have you ever asked any of the alien beings you've encountered why they chose to contact you? And if they did, what did they say?
As a child, my mom was an experiencer. She never told me till before my book was just released. She kept it quiet. But as a child, I did ask them. I didn't really get much of a response from them. Not really.
Why did you, Lisa, think you've been a magnet for attracting alien beings?
Good question. Only thing I could figure, like I did a test for mental endurance. As a child, I called it the maze game. And only certain people done that. I think what it is, I had the mental endurance. I was able to handle and cope with this. That's the only thing I could figure. Really know, and I was special that way, and I think that's why they chose me, because there's people that, especially the maze game, I can get right into that. I can tell you all about that. But the maze game wasn't made for everybody. Only certain people can do it. And since I went through that, and there's very little girls, it's mostly boys that get involved in this game, the tests. Like for the maze game, there was me, there was another girl, a couple of boys. At first, they would take us into a room. There's only 5 of us. And they would take us in a room. They would close the door. It's a big white room. And there was a white table in there. I didn't like the table because it made me think of the examination table they took me and they did the experiments on you. We'd be sitting at one side of the table and there would be a couple of grays in the front of the table in front of us. They would instruct us what to do. Like we had something like a tablet. It was all white. The symbols on it were in black. We had to look at those. We had to use like a stick, like a pen. You can use your finger if you wanted to. And we looked at those symbols and we would draw them out on a thing. It's like a sketch thing. We would do that. We would help one another like doing this. You would make games who can remember the most, who would catch on the quickest. So we've done that for a while. After a while, it got more involved. You had more symbols and you had to learn what they meant as in direction, which ways, and you had to be able to determine which one meant. So after we learned those, I remember they took us down out of the room. They took us down the hall there, White Hall, and this door slid open, like how the doors, entranceways, they just would slide. It's like a door there. It would just slide literally right into the wall so you couldn't even see it anymore. And we went into this room. The room was different. Like the rest of the ship was white inside, but this room is like a medium gray, the walls, and it was darker in there. And again, they had these thin, narrow lights on the side of the walls. I didn't like going in there. The atmosphere I felt when I went in there. We step in, we go over and to the right, we stand in there, we close the door, and the wall down the other end in front of us, it's like open up in 2 parts, and each piece again would go into the wall. And you can see these 9 square entrances. There's 3 on top, 3 in the middle, and 3 on the bottom. And for the upper level ones, they had something like a step ladder. You would go up on that into the higher level. And there's a lot of levels altogether. Each one was harder. When you first started, you go down on the bottom. I remember the first time I went into it, was on one on the bottom on the left side. And you can see that it was lit up inside. You can see like lights, like whitish blue lights inside it. And when you first went in it, it's like a tunnel. You had to go through it on your hands and knees. You had to crawl through it. When you first go in there, they'll close the doors behind you. It was not a good feeling. Once you had those doors closed on you, you knew you weren't going to get out or go home till you did it. You had to do it. And I remember these lights are running along the bottom of the floor, and they had the symbols on them. One's on the bottom of the floor, and when it turns in there, they're like a curve. And on the side of these turns there, they'll have another light going up on the wall there, and you see more symbols on that. The symbols were in black. They were raised. You can feel them with your hands. They're the same symbols we had to study. And you really had to examine these symbols, and you had to go through that maze. And there's different levels to this maze. Like they had like a ramp. You would go down or up, either way. I remember first time I went through in there, I can feel air blowing in. And you look back at the wall, still lights. They had like different shapes on the bottom there. I thought, this is the way out. You can see through them. You can see out through these holes they had, the shapes. I went down to the end and I looked out, and I can see that I had to go down more levels because I was literally above the trees. You looked outside, you can see the trees below you. So I had to make my way down several levels, quite a few again. So I went through, I could feel the breeze again. And I got excited in the way, like happy, like anxious to get outside. I went down to the end where these openings were, and I can see I was at ground level. And again, you had to pick out the right shape, so you make sure that's how the exit to get out, because not all of them were exits. You would push them open. They'll push up and they'll stay open. We went feet first. Then after that, there's a certain area we had to run to, certain part, these trees, and we had to run down there, and we had to wait in the trees till they got us. And there was a time limit too. You had a certain time to do it.
Certified clinical master hypnotherapist Leslie Mitchell-Clarke played an important role in all that you have gone through. How did the two of you connect, and how did she help you cope with everything that happened to you?
First, how I met Leslie, I went through, it's a bit of a process. Like at first, I went online. I was aware of MUFON, and they had like ERT form. I fill that in because it's basically made for experiencers. So I done that. Then I submitted to MUFON with my name and address. You have to give them your address and name so they know how to contact you if you wanted help. So I've done that. I don't think even a week after that, I heard back from Ryan Stacy. He used to be MUFON, but not anymore. He has his own group. Like he contacted me and I talked to him for a bit. Like I filled in reports and that, and he went through it. And then he asked me if I want to have regression done. And that's how I met Lizzie Mitchell-Clarke. And I still do talk with her today. That's how I met her. I spoke to her on the phone a few times to get to know her and understand about regression. And then I started seeing her. I had 7 regressions done so far in the last few years since I knew her.
Many experiencers never tell family members about what they went through for fear of being mocked and not being believed. You, Lisa, lucked out in that regard as you have an understanding and supportive family. What advice would you give to experiencers who are uncertain about coming out to loved ones?
Well, for a while there, I really thought I wasn't going to tell anybody at all. Then one time I had this horrific experience. My husband was not home. It just came to the point I just can't do this anymore. My husband's in the military. He'd been going away a lot. And I'm home among 2 boys. My son was seeing things. I just didn't know what to do anymore. So I called my mom. I told her what was going on. At this point, I woke up. I had these forfeit burns on my knees and other unpleasant stuff on me. I just didn't know what to do anymore. My son was terrified. So that's when my mom knew something was going on with me. During my childhood, she knew something was going on with me. So when I told her, it shocked her, but she knew then. That's how she found out I was an experiencer. I was just at my wit's end. I just didn't know what to do anymore. And I said, I have to tell somebody, anybody. I found out holding it in was not really healthy for me. It's not something I recommend. I know it's hard. I know what people are going through, but especially today now, there's people out there that will listen to you, that will believe you. Because I know a couple people. Like I know Terry Lovelace. I knew him for a couple of years. He lost someone. And someone else I know lost somebody that was an experiencer because they didn't get the help they needed. So I recommend that try to find somebody.
Good advice.
Because I feel a lot better than I used to.
If viewers of Paranormal Yacker want to buy Living in Two Worlds, a true account of alien encounters, how can they do that?
Amazon. It's on Amazon and it's available worldwide.
Lisa Savoy, I thank you for being my guest on Paranormal Yacker. You are a very brave and courageous person, and I applaud you for being so open in sharing with others the obstacles you faced. I wish you success with your book and happiness in your life.
And thank you for having me on your show.
Hi, everyone. This is Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yacker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched. To be sure you're amongst the first to receive new interviews when they're released and to have access to previous ones, subscribe to my free YouTube channel. To do that, all you have to do is press the subscribe button on your screen.